ever get that feeling, you know? Like there's maybe more going on than we usually see. Like invisible things maybe affecting our emotions or thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Those subtle nudges.
Okay, so let's really kind of explore that today because we're diving into some really fascinating ideas about, well, how spiritual energies might actually interact with our everyday lives. We've got these insights from writings linked to André Luiz through Francisco Cândido Xavier, and they offer a perspective that, well, it goes way beyond just the physical stuff we normally talk about.
It's really compelling stuff. These sources, they suggest that our experiences aren't just, physical cause and effect.
Right.
They propose this like deep, constant connection, a link with a spiritual dimension, hinting at unseen forces influencing, well, our thoughts, our feelings.
Exactly. And for you, the learner, always digging for that deeper why, wanting to understand the human condition, on a richer level.
Yeah.
This deep dive could have some real aha moments, but we'll keep it focused, not overwhelmingly complex.
Good point.
Our goal today is pretty straightforward. Just unpack some key ideas from this material about spiritual influences, how they might connect with our minds, our bodies, and what spiritual growth actually looks like according to them.
And if you look at the big picture they paint, it's like this constant flow, isn't it? Back and forth between the physical and the spiritual.
Yeah.
Makes you really wonder about the subtle effects of our thoughts, our emotions, things happening beyond what we're consciously aware of.
So where do we even start with this? Well, one of the first things that jumped out at me was the pineal gland, or the epiphyse, as it's sometimes called.
Yes, the pineal.
It's presented as, like, not just biology, but a sort of central point for emotions, the nervous system, strongly linked to what they call the ethereal body.
And what's really key there is the idea that it's doing more than just secreting hormones.
Right.
The source material actually describes it as generating force units.
Force units.
Okay. Yeah, think of it like the raw energy behind your thoughts and feelings. This gland helps generate and maybe focus that, almost like a subtle power plant inside us.
Power plant, I like that.
Yeah, one that needs careful managing for our own growth, personal and spiritual.
Okay, so an internal power source we need to, consciously direct. And the writings actually warn about letting this energy just drain away into negative emotions.
There's that stark image.
Yeah, that wallowing like swine image.
Yeah.
In negativity, suggesting that getting stuck there can actually hold back our spiritual progress, even after we die physically.
Really brings up a crucial point about managing our internal energy, doesn't it?
It does.
The material mentions, the standard view of sports, how it helps manage nervous energy, those electrical secretions maybe from the pineal for physical health, even heredity.
Right, the materialist view.
Yeah, but then it draws this sharp contrast, stressing how vital it is to conserve our psychic energies for spiritual advancement. Virtue, it says, is like the sport of the soul.
The sport of the soul.
Wow. So real progress comes from cultivating our inner selves, refining our essence, not just, working out the body.
Exactly. It's about where you direct that core energy.
Okay, so moving from our insides to maybe outside influences, the sources talk about spiritual assistance. They suggest that spiritual helpers actively help us out, especially when we're doing spiritual work like mediumship or maybe even just deep prayer.
Yes, and the level of detail and the preparations they describe is quite something.
It really is. Things like magnetic adjustments to nerve cells, support for the sympathetic and central nervous systems.
Almost like tuning an instrument very finely.
Yeah, calibrating it. And even protecting against sudden physical shocks. It really suggests a lot is happening behind the scenes that we just don't perceive.
It really does highlight how limited our awareness often is, while we're here in the physical.
It does.
There's that analogy they use. It's quite touching, actually. Like kids in a comfy home often having no clue about the sacrifices their parents are making.
We often miss the spiritual efforts being made for us.
That's a really humbling thought, isn't it? We might imagine spiritual growth as these grand, easy leaps.
Yeah. Miracles, maybe?
But according to these sources, it's grounded in just work, consistent effort, personal responsibility, always trying to improve ourselves. Less about getting easy favors, more about taking charge of our own growth.
And that theme of personal effort comes up again and again. Support is available, definitely, but the main responsibility for our journey, that lies with us, each one of us.
Okay. Now this next idea, it's a bit unsettling, but it's pretty central in the source material, the concept of vampirism.
Ah, yes. Not the capes and fangs kind, though.
No, thankfully. But this idea of discarnate entities, they sometimes call them larvae, with this, like, strong, energetic pull.
Vigorous animal magnetism is the phrase used, I think.
Right, and they attach themselves to people who are maybe less spiritually aware and drain their vital energy.
And what's striking is how they're described attaching. It's not random. The text says, sort of humorously, they aren't served on plates. They cling to those whose own energy, their vibratory patterns, match theirs.
So if you're stuck in negative thoughts, anger, fear, resentment, it's like tuning into their frequency.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
You inadvertently attract similar energies. That's the idea presented.
Definitely not a nice thought, but the source presents it as a reality to be aware of. Which then begs the question, where's the protection, from higher up? Why aren't these negative influences just stopped?
Well, the answer they give puts things in a very broader context. The universal order, our place in it.
Okay.
It suggests that just as humans have sometimes acted cruelly towards beings lower on the scale, like animals, it makes it harder to just claim total innocence and demand absolute protection from all negative influences. There's this sense of interconnectedness, of consequence, cause and effect on a bigger scale.
Wow, that's a sobering thought, the ripple effects of our actions. And the sources explain how these negative influences can mess with our moods, our thoughts. Even after something positive, like a spiritual meeting, you might leave feeling great, then later just feel inexplicably heavy.
Which really points to the need for constant self-awareness, doesn't it? Vigilance about our inner state.
Absolutely.
Because while external help might be there, the real lasting freedom from these kinds of influences, it has to come from inside us. Actively cultivating positive thoughts, transforming our own energy signature.
It's that classic idea, inner change creates outer change. And the material points out how we tend to look for quick fixes, those inadmissible miracles.
Yeah, rather than tapping into our own power for renewal.
Exactly. It's a call to really own our inner landscape.
And that inner landscape, according to these sources, is deeply, deeply tied to our physical health.
Okay, how so?
The body is compared to, like, a musical instrument. It reflects the harmony or the disharmony of the soul playing it.
And every single cell. It says every cell vibrates according to a specific mental frequency.
It's a potent image. How our thoughts, our emotions affect us right down to the cellular level. We're constantly creating, renewing, or, sadly, sometimes breaking down parts of ourselves through our mental activity.
Wow.
Which loops back to that vampirism idea, but framed as illnesses of the soul.
Ah, okay.
The suggestion is, while physical treatments help, sure, true healing, real balance.
Yeah.
It ultimately needs each of us to become our own physician, addressing those root imbalances in our spirit and mind.
So, becoming our own healer. If we're on this journey of self-healing, self-growth, what's the bigger picture? The sources talk about reincarnation, its purpose, its challenges. And they mention this incredible place, reincarnation planning.
Yeah, that's a fascinating concept. The idea that returning here isn't just random chance.
Right.
There's a sense of lessons being gathered, a deliberate process in choosing or perhaps agreeing to the circumstances of our next life.
And there's this profound respect shown for the physical body in all this. It's seen as like a sacred gift, an essential tool for evolving spiritually over maybe millennia. They even mention intercessory work, help given to souls who are facing really difficult reincarnations. It underlines the care involved.
It really challenges that notion of the body as just a temporary vessel, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's framed as a vital instrument for our long-term spiritual development.
And interestingly, they touch on why someone might choose a body that's, let's say, less outwardly perfect.
Yeah, why is that?
It's suggested it could be to avoid negative reactions, envy, spite from others who get too hung up on appearances.
That's complex.
Yeah.
An insight into how our interactions work, maybe trying to bypass superficial judgments.
Yeah, it suggests true value isn't skin deep. And it adds that while our physical brain has limits, our eternal self, the spirit, remembers everything, understands everything.
So the benefits of spiritual lessons stick, even if our conscious mind here doesn't fully recall where they came from.
Exactly. That growth isn't just lost every time, which is comforting, I think. Now, shifting slightly, the sources also talk about spiritual gatherings and assistance. And it's not always formal meetings in, special places.
Precisely. A lot of significant spiritual guidance, support, it can happen right within our everyday family life, even in a simple setting, like they mention the poor home of Simon Peter.
And it describes how discarnate spirits, those still strongly attached to their old lives,
Yeah.
can stay connected to their homes, their families, even drawing energy, it says, from living relatives, which really highlights the need for healthy boundaries, spiritually and emotionally.
It ties into that idea that the company we keep, physical and perhaps non-physical, often mirrors our own tendencies, our own choices.
Like attracts, like on an energy level.
That's the concept, yeah. A vibrational alignment.
But it's not all just about these lingering attachments. The sources also mention visiting brothers.
Right, spiritual visitors.
Yeah, entities in the spiritual realm who offer information, support to those who need it. Suggests a kind of network of help.
And in really serious situations, like cases of suicide mentioned in the text, they describe specific interventions using magnetic influence involving higher spiritual beings.
It shows compassion and help are available, even in the darkest moments. Which brings us back again to our own personal effort. It's crucial for spiritual growth. Help is there, yes, but our progress isn't just about being a passive channel for higher intelligence.
The real key is actively developing our own divine principles. There's that lovely analogy of the acorn growing into the mighty oak tree. It illustrates the potential locked inside every soul.
And achieving true celestial mediumship, real inner balance.
Yeah.
The sources link that to aligning ourselves with the spirit of truth, often identified with Jesus, and actually living according to those divine lessons.
It's about embodying the principles, not just knowing them.
Right. Actively living them.
And this can lead to, well, quite extraordinary phenomena like the transfiguration described.
Oh, with the guide Alexandre.
Yes. When surrounded by higher spiritual forces, he apparently radiated intense light, bestowed blessings.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? The potential when connecting with higher energies. And the text even says groups of high-level entities can manipulate the environment, ionizing the atmosphere, managing energy for spiritual work.
A reminder of powers far beyond our usual senses.
Definitely. Now, on a more challenging note, obsession, mental imbalance, the sources link mental disturbances directly to physical illness.
Intoxications of the soul, causing diseases of the body. That's the connection made.
And in these cases, it often turns out that both the obsessed person and the obsessor, they have history, long-standing connections, shared difficulties from the past.
It points to these intricate, sometimes karmic relationships spanning lifetimes.
Yeah. And it also stresses the limits of outside help in severe obsession cases.
True healing requires conscious effort, inner change, from both individuals involved. It's presented as a kind of collaborative journey towards rebalancing.
Amid all that complexity, though, there's the simple power of prayer.
Yes. Highlighted as a way to lift our mental state, create a bridge between the spiritual and physical, making it easier for that fraternal help to come through.
And it emphasizes that sincere faith, whatever your specific religion, or even if you have none, that's what opens the door. Genuine intention, heartfelt connection. That's what matters for divine protection and assistance.
The sincerity of the heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, let's touch on sex and love. Often misunderstood, right? The sources call it the divine mission of sex.
Emphasizing its sacredness, particularly in earthly parenthood, but also linking it to humanity's creative power more broadly.
And what's really key is the distinction they make between like basic instinctual sexuality
And a higher form, which is described as this sublime exchange of paraspiritual energies.
Paraspiritual energy.
Nourishing the mind, the heart. Fostering a kind of spiritual creation that's beyond just physical children.
And as souls evolve, become less tied to the physical, that need for organic sexual union fades.
That's the idea. It gets replaced by, well, exchanging divine values, magnetic energies, a deeper soul connection.
Interesting. The sources also briefly mention their reincarnation process itself, fetal development.
Guided by spiritual helpers, yeah. Highlighting the care taken and the support given to the mother during pregnancy, too.
It just reinforces the sense of intention, of care surrounding our arrival here. And finally, they tackle that big question about destiny and reincarnation. Is it all rigidly fixed?
And the answer is pretty clear. No.
No, right. There's a program, yes, tasks, lessons, but the soul keeps its free will. We can choose to progress or stagnate or even, apparently, regress.
It underscores our active role. Reincarnation provides the stage, the opportunities, but our choices, our efforts, they write the script of our progress.
That's a really key understanding. Our agency remains.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what were some of the big takeaways for you? For me, it's just that profound interconnectedness. Spiritual, physical, it's not separate boxes. These subtle energies are constantly part of our experience.
Definitely that. And for me, also the strong, strong emphasis on personal responsibility.
Mm.
Yes, there's guidance, there's support out there, but the real work, cultivating positive change, seeking that inner harmony, that's on us. It's essential for growth.
Yeah, and I think that idea of the pineal gland as this energy center reacting to our thoughts and emotions, that feels like a real aha moment. It gives us sort of tangible mechanism, even if spiritually explained, for the power of our inner world.
It does. It really makes you consider the practical side, doesn't it? How we manage that mental, emotional energy day to day.
Totally. So here's something for you listening to really ponder, thinking about all this. How might your own understanding of your thoughts, your feelings, even your physical well-being, how might that shift? If these unseen influences are part of our reality, how could we maybe cultivate more awareness, more intention in our daily lives? It's definitely a lot to think about.
It is indeed. And we hope you continue exploring these ideas, maybe revisit them as you carry on with your own learning and growth.
Yeah.